If you would like to hear Night Dreams Talk Radio on your local radio station, let them know. Tell them to check out www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. And thank you.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Good evening or morning, depending on your time zone. From the Pacific to the Atlantic to you worldwide. Get yourself a cup of java and find a comfy, easy chair. And get ready for Gary and his guest on Night Dreams Talk Radio After Dark. And now, here's Gary.
And that is me. A big shout out to 105.3 FM, breaking news and stimulated talk radio. The Answer will be carrying us as of the first week of March on Night Dreams Talk Radio. Now, getting back to you, Terry, I went to the doctor. The doctor says, well, you have this piece of metal in your spine. I freak out. I come to the conclusion, well, I didn't know how it got there. I kind of forgot about it. Now, one of my sons gets in trouble where I have to go to drug court every month in Pierce County, Washington. Lo and behold, I walk in. I have to go through this metal detector. It sets it off. Now, are you still with us, Earl?
Yeah, sure.
For a minute,
well, I've heard similar stories before.
Yeah, but
now you had a weird encounter in your car, didn't you? Where your car was flooded with light.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about what happened to you? That I was really impressed with.
Well,
and maybe that had something to do with your encounter. You know why you've got this strange piece of metal in your body.
Well, I was coming back from North Carolina. I took a job there. I did not like it. I worked doing gel coating forms where they would make sailboats. I also worked for the police department as a police officer part-time in the evenings. My wife hated it. I didn't like it. And I realized our marriage is over. So we moved back from North Carolina. We went back to, on our way back to Seattle. We get into New Mexico. We're going through the desert. And all of a sudden, all around my car lights up brighter than daylight. Inside of the car lights up. And it's hurting my eyes. And the only thing I could think, Earl, is it has to be a police officer. Because I was speeding. I'll be honest with you. I had a GTO. It went fast. And I was going extremely fast. So I pull over thinking, okay, this is going to be a big ticket. I didn't have much money, so I was worried I was going to be arrested. And then, that type of thing when you're out of state. I get out of the car, and I'm looking around, and it's really bright to the point it was hurting my eyes. And first thing I noticed, there was no sound. Now, I was in the military. I know what helicopters sound like. I've been on lots of them. I didn't hear any sound of an egg beater. Nothing. It was just dead silence. I look up at the sky, and I could hardly even look because it was so bright. And then, poof, it was gone. And, I was I was shook up. My wife was...
Could you hear, crickets or anything, or any external sounds?
Nothing. Yeah. Absolutely void of any sound. It's like if you're in my studio when everybody's sleeping in the house. Not a sound. That's how quiet it was.
There's they call that the Oz effect, and that happens. That is one of the markers. We see it time and time and time again, and I experienced that myself, so I know it personally, experientially. That when our visitors, quote unquote, whichever ones they were, when they make your space into their space, usually it's preceded with the bright light, like you expressed. And things get strange at that point, and suddenly it gets very, very quiet. And time does weird things, and a second can be like hours can be like a second. I'm working on a case right now with a woman who finally came forward. She had an experience back in 1976 where she experienced the Oz effect. She was a local woman. She was a local girl back then. I think she was 9 years old. And her room suddenly flooded with light. She heard this weird swish sound, like she said, it sounded like somebody had a jump rope that they were swirling over her head. And it got louder and louder, and it was starting to bother her. And she walked to the window, and she looked out the window, and she saw a black disc. It was circled with lights that were spinning around. And now, that's not a stealth method.
No.
If you don't want to be seen, you don't put lights, especially you don't have spinning multicolored lights around the rim of a saucer-shaped craft. She said this thing looked like it was very, very weighty. And, that it was tons and tons of weight there that was, ineffably hanging there. She was in the second story, and this was between her house and the neighbor's house. And she originally heard the sound, and then it became perfectly quiet, quieter than quiet, to where you couldn't hear street sounds, no crickets, no nothing. It was like, in the old Get Smart program where they go in the cone of silence. It was like that, or like your studio, And she said that time got really strange for her, that she was mesmerized by these lights. And there may have been some missing time there that she didn't even realize happened. She said suddenly she noticed that the saucer was not lit up anymore. It was just this flat black color. It was grooved around with grooves that looked like you used to see on old LP records, right? That was the only surface feature. It was like 20 feet across. And this woman was very, very credible. She'd been talking about it with her husband for years, and he would sort of poo-poo it off, and she talked with her sisters who stayed awake. Or they stayed asleep when she had her experience. And this case, I'm actually going to give it an unknown classification, because there were just so many markers, and the emotion was there. And in speaking with this woman, the different times I spoke with her, the emotion was there. She was recounting a memory. It wasn't like a story that she'd written down. This was a memory that she was recounting. But, there's always that quietude that happens around this phenomena. It seems like the light creates their space. And I think that the light, it's more than just light. You were talking about how bright it was for you. And that happened to me in my experience. Our room flooded with light, and it was coming from all sides. It seemed to be permeating the walls of our house, which, of course, normal photonic light doesn't do. And it became very, very, very quiet. We used to have a cricket problem. There were no crickets. There was no external sounds. And that's when things got weird. So they kind of set the stage that way, and I think that that's how they make their physics. They sort of replace our physics with theirs. I don't know if they make like a little pocket of their own universe in ours, and that's what happens. That's the best I can explain. It's probably something that we can't understand. But what you expressed is actually a common thing, and we see it time and time again. In all the better cases, the ones that we know are actually anomalous.
Well, I just know that in my case, I didn't think much of it afterwards. I kind of brushed it off. I remember my wife was upset for a couple hours in the car. She was looking and saying, "Oh, that's a UFO. That's a UFO." I mean, she was frantic about it. I kind of just brushed it off and forgot about it till about a year and a half ago when I was talking to, I think, Timothy Collin. And then some of the things that he was saying made me wonder, like with me, because like I said, one of my sons, I had to go to drug court every month for a year. Every time I would go through their metal detector, it would set it off. I mean, to a point where they finally started taking me in that special room, and that, you go in there and they put a glove on their hand and all that stuff because they're wondering what you're bringing into the courthouse. And not just that, I could not go on an airplane flight anywhere without setting their alarm system off. So it makes me wonder, I don't remember ever getting injured, to have something punctured in, no scar tissue, nothing. That's the other issue. And, it makes you wonder, like, wow, what's going on? And I have thought about that very strongly for the past year and a half. You
might want to get an X-ray or an MRI.
I did. That's how they found it. The MRI found it. That's why when I went in there, the doctor asked me, did you injure yourself in the war or anything like that? And I go, no. And that's when he was really looking. He goes, there's no scar tissue. And that's what freaked me out. And, and then that, saying, hey, can you pull it out? No, I can't, because we don't want you in a wheelchair. So it just makes me, when people start talking about implants, like Timothy Cullen that had his removed, and a couple other people I've talked to that claimed they had implants. Terry Lovelace says that, he's implanted and had part of it removed, but still, then he got implanted again, or they removed it or something. I can't remember, but it scares me.
Yeah. I have a guy who he keeps having an implant put into his foot, and he says it's the reptilian aliens that come to him, and he hates them. He hates them. And if I tell him, well, some people actually have good experiences, I won't tell you his name, but he'll get really upset. He'll say, no, these are evil. It's like, dude, it's, this is one, it's just like humans, if you go back to the 1940s, you had Nazis, but everybody wasn't a Nazi. There were evil people, and there were, people that weren't so evil. And I think that perhaps we're we actually have quite a few different races, and within the same races of aliens, sometimes with different motives. All humans don't believe the same things. They don't all have the same political aspirations, and I think that this is a little microcosm, and but that's all we have to work with. We could just kind of generalize that the macrocosm is probably similar, that if there are different creatures out there, and I have every reason to believe so, that there are probably different motives within the same group sometimes. Let's just hope the good guys win in the end, right? We're still here. We're having this conversation. So, if they were out to invade us, they've done a horrible job of it. They've been here since at least 1947, I believe.
I think
probably a lot longer.
I think they've been here since the pyramids. I've got into it with, a few people on the show. Think about it. Why did the Mayas, why did the Incas put gold as precious? Well, how could the pyramids, how could the Sphinx ever been built? They didn't have the technology. So I think we've been visited